11 things bad players think in Marvel Rivals. Number 1, saying I need healing is annoying. The I need healing button is in the game for a reason. It's one thing if the person is spamming it and clearly being a little toxic about it, but like nobody has full awareness of everything that's happening in a super chaotic team fight in Rivals. And so saying I need healing is just a good way to quickly communicate to your supports that you need a little touch up. I think there are some bad support players out there that get mad at their DPS or their tanks whenever they press the button. And I think there's some duelist or tank players out there that are afraid of hitting the button in spots where they should. Again, it's just a useful tool. Obviously, some people can take it too far. Some people can spam it, and that can be, a little frustrating. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why it's in the game. And high-rated players will say they need healing a lot just to communicate to their supports where they are so that they could potentially get some help. Number 2, it's the tank's job to protect the team. The tank's job is to take space and set their team up for success in the fight by the amount of space that they've taken, and they need to try to do that without taking too much damage, right? If you're somebody that feels like you need to sit behind a shield to not be getting shot, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a positioning issue. You need to be able to use the natural cover of the map. You need to be able to fight in a spot where you can fall back. The Doctor Strange shield is a limited resource, and you don't want to just burn that up for free at the start of the fight. It's your job as a duelist player to be able to output damage without losing resources in return. If I'm playing Punisher and I'm playing out here in the open to the point where I'm just getting shot and I'm like, come on, Doctor Strange, shield me, I'm doing something wrong. I should be playing back here in a spot to where I can fight a little bit, then fall back. I have the potential of falling back to the health pack if I need to, or towards my team to get support in that way. But the point is, I, as a low health target, need to have an escape plan. If things go bad, if I get shot a little bit too much, I need a plan to fall back into safety. And it's not the tank's job to soak up all the damage that's coming at you from the other team. At the end of the day, Marvel Rivals is a shooter game, and in shooter games, you have to be able to use natural cover to keep yourself alive. Number 3, it is the duelist job to get the kills. Obviously, a good duelist is going to get a lot of kills. So don't get me wrong, the duelist should be actively trying to get kills and actively try to do damage to the enemies to pressure them down and make them use their resources. But it's crazy how many games I'll play in lower rated games when I'm playing with my friends, where if you look at the scoreboard, everyone's sitting on like 1 or 2 elims. Like we're clearly just getting rolled, right? And people will just start flaming the DPS as if they can somehow magically get kills when you're getting rolled. If my support is dying off cooldown right as we get to the fight, I'm probably not going to have an opportunity to get kills because the other team has more players, therefore more resources. They have more healing resources. They have their full tank lineup. I'm just not going to be able to magically kill someone. And the only way I would be able to get a kill in that spot is if someone on the other team made a huge mistake, which if you're playing against like halfway decent players, they're not just going to feed you kills. And also there could be a situation where, let's say we have a Doctor Strange, they have a Doctor Strange. My Strange is doing significantly less damage than their Strange. And also he's not doing a good job at using his shield to block important enemy cooldowns. Then in that situation, right from the get-go, I as a duelist player am going to have a significantly smaller chance at getting a kill on the other team than their team is to mine. So if you're losing a game, you're getting rolled, it's not necessarily your duelist's fault. That's all I'm saying. Number 4, don't value their own life. Not dying is the single best thing you can do to rank up. If you're confused to why your team is losing, a lot of times, if you look at the player that is dying in the 6v6 fight, like right when both teams are getting ready to fight each other, who is the person that dies? And whoever that person is, if it's you, it's probably your fault that you're losing. The person that dies in a neutral fight just being a 6v6 situation where nobody has any ultimates. If you die to an ultimate, obviously that's one thing. Good players will try to plan around the enemy's ultimates to try to minimize their chance of dying to them. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just die to ults and there's not that much you could do about it. But if the enemy team isn't using ultimates and you're dying in a spot where you have equal numbers to the enemy team, you made some sort of mistake. If you're someone who's like, oh no, I got Groot walled off, or oh no, I got Hawkeye headshotted, there's nothing I could have done about that. At the end of the day, Groot has always had his walls and Hawkeye's always had his one shot. So if you got walled off and isolated from your team and you died for that, the chances you probably should have positioned better against a Groot, because a good Groot is gonna wall you off. Same with a Hawkeye. If a Hawkeye headshots you, you probably either should have positioned out of his LOS, which is isn't always possible. But if you were in his LOS, did you have the best movement in the world, or did you kind of walk in a straight line just holding W? Sometimes you will just die. Like, don't get me wrong, nobody is perfect. Like, sometimes you will be in a 6v6 situation, you're just getting there. The team fight's just about to happen, and you will die, and it will be your fault, or there would have been something else you could have done to not have died in that spot. But if it's consistently happening over the course of a game, the chance is it's kind of your fault that you're losing that game. Number 5, stats are the only thing that matters. People overvalue stats in Marvel Rivals. I'll go through each stat individually that you can see on the scoreboard and try to explain why I think they're not as important as you might think. Starting with eliminations. Eliminations aren't a good indicator of performance because you get an elimination for doing any amount of damage to someone on the enemy team that dies. There are heroes in the game like a Penny Parker, like a Scarlet Witch, that just kind of shoot people from a distance. Therefore, they're very likely to be able to just put in just a little bit of chip damage on targets that are dying. In Overwatch, it's been known since like 2016 or 2017 that if you brag about having the most eliminations, you aren't a very good player. It's not something to really care that much about. Let's say we walk up and we kill all 6 people, but our Black Widow got a kill right at the start of that fight, but then maybe she only got one more elimination after that. She only ended up with 2 eliminations, whereas like our Penny Parker might have shot all 6 people just a little bit, and so she's gonna have 6 elims, but our Black Widow who got the kill in the 6v6 is really the reason why we won the fight. You know how I was saying earlier that dying in a 6v6 can be an indicator that you are the problem? Well, getting a kill in a 6v6, or just in general, just when the enemy team has the same amount of people alive as you do, getting a kill in those spots is very, very, very valuable and doesn't necessarily show up in the scoreboard. Damage is definitely better than eliminations, but you have to understand that there are just some heroes that do less damage than other heroes just by their nature. A Spider-Man is never going to have as much damage as a Moon Knight, but if the Moon Knight is shooting at the tanks all game, just getting his damage numbers up really high, but not actually finishing anyone off, whereas the Spider-Man is only going in for 1 or 2 people on their back line, but almost all of Spider-Man's damage might actually be going towards kills. So damage is useful when you factor in what hero they were actually playing, but you have to remember to do that. Damage blocked, I think people in lower ranks think damage blocked is like a really good stat, but in reality, you want damage blocked to be as low as possible. Having a high damage block just means you were taking a bunch of damage. Obviously, tanks are just going to have a naturally higher damage block than the other roles, so it's to be expected that their numbers are higher, but you still don't want it to be high. It's still not a good thing to have a high damage blocked, especially when you're taking that damage to your body and you're dying because of it. Healing, there's just so many factors that go into high healing numbers. For example, if your tanks are just taking more damage than the other team's tanks, your team's healing is going to be higher than theirs, right? Let's say you have 2 tanks, but the other team only has 1. Well, that means that naturally the team with 2 tanks is going to have healers with higher healing because they have to heal that extra tank up. You know, there's just a bunch of factors. Again, if you compare only within your team and you factor in that some healers output more healing than others, then this could matter. But again, there's a lot of things you have to think about. Accuracy is a little bit of whatever, because a lot of times when I play projectile heroes, I'll just be spamming it just to do it because there's no reason not to. Looking at a hit scan's accuracy is probably a pretty decent indicator, but although again, what if that Hela is just shooting tanks the whole game? Is just shooting Doctor Strange shield compared to the other team's Hela that might be killing our backline but missing more shots in the process. So again, it's just another stat that doesn't tell you the full story. Final hits are probably better than eliminations, but still, if you're on cleanup duty and most of your final hits come in team fights that are like 6v1 or 6v2, that's less impactful than the person who gets the kill in the 6v6. And then finally, deaths are probably the best single stat on the scoreboard. If you're somebody that is not dying very often while still outputting damage or healing or, you know, whatever role you may play, then you're probably doing something right. Although even that has its stipulations. I would say supports should usually have the lowest deaths on the team. I think duelists tend to die the most, but one more stipulation is that brings us to the 6th thing that bad players think in Marvel Rivals, is they think that dying is always bad, and dying isn't always bad. A lot of times the correct play, the best thing you can do in the moment is to die, and that's when your team dies. Let's say we're on second point Clintar, and 4 of my teammates died, and I'm playing Luna Snow. I have the option of A, trying to run away and get back towards my spawns so that I can group up with my team and we fight again. Or B, try to die on the point, stalling the objective in the process. That way I will respond with my team and I'm not giving the other team a chance to stagger me. And a lot of times this is just the correct play. If you're playing domination, stalling the point for 5-10 seconds can be the entire reason you win a game. Let's say I'm playing Rocket Raccoon and I stall the objective for 5 seconds. I get my team score from 50 to 55. Well, that's a 10-point swing because not only does my team get 5 extra points for me stalling the objective and dying on point, but the other team is not getting 5 points. That's a 10-point swing just for making the active choice to try to die on point rather than trying to get out. Sometimes you might say, but like, oh, I think I would have got out. But if there's even like a question, if there's a 20% chance that they run you down and they kill you, it's going to stagger you out and you're going to be really late for the next fight. So good players in the game will know when they should be dying on point and when they should be trying to run away. But it's all very situational. Bad players think that saving their ultimate for the perfect moment is the right choice. And that's just not true. I'm mainly talking about offensive ults or ults that lead to kills. Basically every ult in the game that isn't a defensive support ult. Basically, if you are playing a character that has an ultimate that kills things and you see yourself getting 1 or 2 kills with that at the start of the fight, you should use your ult in that spot. And that's just because in Marvel Rivals, your team's chance of winning a 6v5 or a 6v4 versus your team's chance of winning a 6v6 is immense. It's so much more likely. I bet the team in a 6v4 in this game wins that team fight probably at least like 85% of the time or something. I haven't seen the stats, but I know for a fact it's very high. You don't need to hit the 4-man, the 5-man, the 6-man ults. You just need to kill 1 or 2 and set your team up to win the game. Another situation that a lot of players will save their ult rather than using it, if you can get a kill to stagger the enemy. Let's say we just won a fight and the last kill we got was like 10 seconds ago. If I can get another kill 10 seconds after the last one or 15 seconds after the last one, and if I have to use my ult to get that kill, then it's probably worth it because the other team's going to have to wait that 10, 15 more seconds to group up. 10 seconds of pushing the payload in the convoy objective is a lot of payload space. So pop your ults and get kills. However, it's different for number 8 is players don't understand when to use their support ults. As a rule of thumb, if you can save someone with your support ult, you should do that. Obviously, if you're right outside your own spawn, that's not the case. They'll get back in a second. Like don't waste it for that. If you just capped first point on any map in the game, if you just capped the point, you shouldn't ult because your team is right there. There's no reason to ult right outside the room. But as a general rule of thumb, if you can save someone, it's worth doing it. It's worth popping that Mantis ult to save your Doctor Strange. Not only are you saving your Strange's life, but a lot of times the enemies will be super aggressively pushed up into you to try to secure that kill on that Doctor Strange because they know if they kill him, you're kind of screwed. And so they might be risking a lot to try to make an aggressive move to try to kill him. They're in your Doctor Strange's face thinking they're about to get a kill. Here comes the Mantis ult. Boom, he's safe. Boom, he's 100% safe. Not only are you saving his life, but there's a good chance you're going to get a kill or 2 on top of that because those players on the enemy team are probably overextended to try to get that kill. And if no one is low on your team, you should be saving your support ult for the enemy team's ultimates, whether that's their Strange ult, whether that's their Bucky ult, whatever it may be. If you believe that your support ult will be good at preventing your team from dying to that, that's an ultimate you should be saving yours for. And again, a lot of times that Bucky is going to go into your team thinking he's going to get a kill with his ult, and then you pop Luna Snow out, all of a sudden he's in the middle of your team with no reset on his ultimate, and he's more than likely a free kill. These support ults can turn losing fights into winning fights. It's the most powerful thing you can do in the entire game is use a support ult. The support ults in this game are so strong, at least in season 1. Also, you shouldn't just be popping them to walk in to take space unless you have like 2 or 3 of them in the bank. 95% of the time, you should be using these to react to stuff rather than using them proactively. It's because they're so unbelievably good at reacting to stuff. The best skill to learn if you're a low-rated support is when to ult properly. It's the thing you can learn to do to be able to win the most games the quickest, is to actually use your ult at the right time. The 9th thing bad players think in Marvel Rivals is you should always shoot the supports first. Now, sure, if I could hand select which of the enemies to kill, which of the enemies to eliminate from a team fight, I would choose Luna Snow, or I would choose one of their supports, whoever it might be. Sure. But the game isn't that simple. You don't always have the opportunity to shoot shoot the supports. Good support players will position themselves in ways where they can still have impact and heal their team without being at a high risk of dying. And just think about it. A ranged DPS on the enemy team needs line of sight on your team to be able to get kills, right? And the enemy team's tank is usually in your face or needs to be shooting you or in your backline or something, depending on what tank they're playing, to add pressure to the fight to give their team space. But a support usually can and should play in a safer spot, right? So a lot of times supports are actually going to have the least amount of deaths on the team in high rated lobbies. And that's not because high rated players are bad at focusing the supports first. It's just you can't always shoot the supports first. It's just not how the game works. And I'm not sure where this idea of you always have to shoot the supports first came from. I think it came from like old Overwatch dive comps where that was kind of like the play, but like, I don't know. In most situations, it's just not that easy. There's also specific times where you should be shooting the other people on their team first. For example, if I see the other team is running Adam Warlock and Mantis, and that's it for their supports, I'm thinking, wait a minute, their healing is really low. If we focus on just shooting their tanks, they're probably not going to have enough heals to be able to sustain their Doctor Strange. And us just winning that frontline battle versus their Strange is probably enough to just win because their team comp is suffering. So all in all, there's just so many factors at play when deciding who to shoot. The enemy's position, the enemy's cooldowns, your team's position, your team's cooldowns, like the status of the objective. Are they on the card? Are they not on the card? Like there's just so many factors that who to shoot first is not something you can just make a simple rule for and always follow it. Most of the time, it's going to come down to feeling and intuition in the moment and reading the enemy, looking for mistakes that the enemy's making and trying to punish those enemies that are making mistakes, either with their positioning or they're wasting their cooldowns early, whatever it might be. Number 10, team comp is everything. I see a lot of comments in my improvement video that you should main a hero in each role in the game so that way you can flex to whatever you need. But in reality, most players who are good at Marvel Rivals have a main role that they try to stick to as much as they can. If you just think about it, playing a game of Magneto feels very different than a game on Rocket Raccoon, which feels very different than playing a game on Star-Lord. Different roles have different objectives and goals in mind for what they want to do in a given match. The Vanguard's main goal is to take and control space. The Strategist's main goal is to support and sustain the team. And the Duelist's goal is to pressure and kill the enemies. And so my point is, like, all these roles play so different. They have different objectives in mind. It's really, really hard to try to improve at all of that at once. And so it's no surprise when most players who are good at the game end up maining one role and trying to get really good at that one role. To me, maining doesn't mean one tricking. I play DPS, I play Duelist, and I would say 75, maybe 80% of my games are on DPS. I do flex sometimes, but I think the key word is sometimes. Most of the time, I'm playing DPS. My rules for what I want my team comp to be are, as long as we have at least one tank and two supports, I'm chilling. Ideally, we have a support ultimate and like enough healing in general. Like if we're on Rocket Raccoon and Jeff the Shark, I might go Cloak just so we have a support all. Or the example I used earlier, if my team is on Adam Warlock and Mantis, I might go like Loki just so we have enough healing. The point is, as a rule of thumb, as long as we have one tank and two supports, I'm chilling. And I feel really good about my chances of winning that game. That's just because I know that I understand Duelist the best. I played DPS and Overwatch for probably 2,000 hours, you know, like it's the role that I'm comfortable on. It's the role that I'm good at. And it's the role that I genuinely believe that I will give my team the best chance of winning if I'm playing that role. And I know that I have the most carry potential on that role. And that brings us to number 11, is that low-rated players believe that they don't have to carry to rank up. I'm here to tell you that if you want to reach a higher rank or you want to climb SR, you do have to consistently carry to win games. Every hero in the game has carry potential. If you ask a top 500 Mercy player from Overwatch, if you don't know Mercy, she was basically this hero that never really interacted with the enemy. She was mainly just a supportive character. She could damage boost her teammates and she could heal them. And a lot of the skill of Mercy just came down to learning her movement. And if you ask a top 500 Mercy player if they carry their games, they're going to say, hell yeah, I carry my games. I carry on Mercy, a hero that doesn't even have a gun to shoot at the other team. Every hero in Marvel Rivals has carry potential, and you could have win rates as high as like 70-80% in most ranks in the game on any any hero, whether that's Rocket Raccoon, whether that's Doctor Strange, whether that's Star-Lord. And you're going to have to learn to carry on the hero that you're playing to be able to rank up. I think maybe why it feels that way is just maybe people just tend to undervalue their teammates. They tend to think that their teammates are maybe worse than they are. I don't know why this is. All I know is that when I feel like I did pretty good that game and I didn't feel like I did great, I just felt like I did good. I don't win the games where I feel like I just did good. I have to feel like I played great to win. And I just had to keep playing and keep getting better until I felt like I could consistently play great so that I could hit higher ranks. Let me know, what do you guys think of my list? Thank you guys for watching.